The 2011-2012 Daraa Governorate clashes are a series of military confrontations between the Syrian Army and the Free Syrian Army in Daraa Governorate, Syria, which began in November 2011, after wide-scale protests and crackdown on protesters in Daraa had lasted since April 2011. The clashes had been ongoing as part of the Syrian Civil War, until the UN-brokered ceasefire came into effect on 14 April 2012. Sporadic clashes have continued since then, however, although there were some civilian protests. Arab League observers have been posted in the area and one of them claimed to see snipers in the city. "We saw snipers in the town. We saw them with our own eyes," the observer told residents in a conversation filmed and posted online. "We're going to ask the government to remove them immediately. We'll be in touch with the Arab League back in Cairo. If the snipers are not gone in 24 hours, then there will be other measures taken." Civilian protesters have died. On 16 February 2012, the army reportedly attacked Daraa, shelling the city heavily. This was apparently because Daraa has been regaining its role in the uprising. Demonstrations have resumed and the Free Syrian Army has been providing security for protests in some parts of the city. The attack was part of a security force push to regain control of areas they lost in recent weeks, indicating FSA in Daraa had taken control of parts of the city. Security forces attacked at least 3 districts, but FSA fighters fought back, firing at army roadblocks and buildings housing security police and militiamen. An activist said that there had been a military build-up near Daraa for the previous 2 weeks. Images taken by residents appears to have shown military tanks in Daraa, and at least 3 security force members were initially killed in the fighting. On 14 March 2012, fighters from the Free Syrian Army controlled at least one main district in the city of Daraa, which made the Syrian Army attack it by firing anti-aircraft guns into buildings of the FSA-controlled district. Timeline: on 14 November, Syrian Army defectors ambushed regular Syrian Army forces near the Jordanian border in the province of Daraa, which led to heavy fighting. The clashes went on for 4 hours. An opposition activist near the town of Kirbet Ghazala stated that he saw 2 destroyed armored personnel carriers and the bodies of 12 civilians. A total of 23 civilians were reported killed in the area. According to an opposition rights group, 23 people were shot dead by security forces posted along the road between the towns of Kirbet Ghazala and Hirat. 34 soldiers and 12 defectors were also killed in the fighting. On 30 November, clashes occurred once again as security forces attempted a raid on the town of Dale, suffering 7 dead and 19 wounded when the convoy of buses came under fire by the Free Syrian Army. According to the head of the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights, Rami Abdul Rahman, 2 of the security force vehicles were blown up. On 5 December, clashes in the province once again occurred, with 4 soldiers being killed by Syrian Army defectors. On the 11th of December, fighting raged in the village of Busra al-Hara and in Lulia, an area of rocky hills north of the town, where defectors had been hiding and attacking military supply. Troops of the 12th Armored engaged hundreds of military defectors. 3 military tanks were reportedly destroyed during the fighting. In December, civilians in Daraa went on strike in protest of the government, and Al Jazeera reported on the 11th of December that they heard reports that troops burned down at least 178 stores and shops in Daraa to try and take revenge against civilians who have shut down the the stores and shops and are basically observing the general strike. On the 12th of December, opposition sources reported army operations in the southern province of Daraa, very near the Jordanian border. Sana, the state news agency, reported 3 members of the security forces were killed in a clash with what they described as a terrorist gang. 4 terrorists were also killed, it said. 3 anti-regime military defectors were wounded in clashes with Syrian security forces in the village of Hirak in Daraa province on the 14th of December. The FSA engaged loyalist army units and security service agents in Daraa on the 15th of December, leading to 27 loyalist deaths and an unknown number of FSA casualties. The clashes broke out at 3 separate checkpoints in the province around dawn. 14 members of the security forces were killed on the 20th of December in the province. The UK-based Syrian Observatory for Human Rights said at least 22 people were killed in clashes in the southern Daraa province on the 21st of December. 22 people, 6 deserters, a civilian and 15 members of the armed forces and security forces, were killed and several dozen civilians were wounded in their homes, the group said. On the 28th of December, clashes in Daraa were once again renewed. Video surfaced and the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights reported that army defectors killed at least 4 Syrian soldiers in an ambush. Around the 1st of January, 6 protesters were shot dead by Syrian security forces. On the 4th of January, the British-based Syrian Observatory for Human Rights said that as dozens of soldiers were defecting in the southern village of Jasem, they came under fire from security forces in a clash that killed at least 18 government troops and an unknown number of FSA casualties. The observatory said security forces later launched raids in the area, detaining more than 100 people. Also, the Syrian government claimed a bomb blast targeted a police patrol in the Daraa countryside which killed a policeman and wounded 5 soldiers. On the 6th of January, the Syrian government claimed that men in military uniform launched an assault on Sur police station in Daraa province. This attack was said to have killed 2 policemen and wounded 6 others. The chief of the police station was allegedly one of those killed in the attack. On the 8th of January, South OHR reported 11 Syrian soldiers were killed in heavy clashes between pro- and anti-government troops in Daraa, alongside another 20 wounded in the village of Basr al-Hara. Then 9 soldiers were said to have defected to join the opposition. On the same day, heavy machine gun exchanges were heard in the town of Dale in Daraa. On the 20th of January, fighting continued and the chief warrant officer of Daraa province was allegedly killed after having been abducted by the opposition. On the 26th of January, an army lieutenant was killed in Daraa, and 14-year-old boy was shot dead by security forces. On the 27th of January, 6 security force members were killed and 5 wounded in the province of Daraa by deserters who ambushed 2 buses transporting security personnel. On the 31st of January, rebel soldiers attacked a minibus carrying 6 security officers on the way to make arrests in Hirak, near Daraa, killing all of the passengers. On the 1st of February, Sana reported that, further south in the suburbs of Daraa, security forces killed 11 gunmen and wounded 2 when they attacked a military bus, killing 1 army sergeant and wounding 2 others. On the 2nd of February, in Daraa city, Sana reported that in a suburb of Daraa, 3 soldiers including an officer were killed and 5 injured. On the 3rd of February, SOHR reported that 8 soldiers were killed in clashes in the southern Daraa province with fighters of the Free Syrian Army. Another soldier was also killed earlier in the village of Jassam, also in Daraa province. On the 9th of February, SOHR reported the deaths of at least 7 soldiers and dozens wounded in an ambush by opposition fighters near the town of Daraa. The security forces were traveling on board 2 buses when they were ambushed on a bridge by dissident soldiers. Rami Abdul Rahman told AFP, on 11 and 12 February at least 22 civilians and 8 FSA fighters were killed, including the town's chant leader, when government heavy weapons shelled a town called Saifara, LCC activists reported. They also reported that the military arrested 90 residents, including children, and refused to give dead bodies back to the relatives. On the 14th of February, activists reported that security forces heavily shelled the southern town of Taybeh. The 17th of February, 12 defecting soldiers were executed in Jassam, Daraa, according to opposition sources. On the 24th of February, Sana reported that 3 of the government soldiers were killed and 5 injured in Al-Sad area in Daraa city. On the 26th of February, South OHR reported that 3 members of the security services were killed in the city of Daraa as the vehicle was targeted by FSA troops, while 2 soldiers were shot dead in the village of Dale as they mounted a minaret. At least 1 member of the security services was shot dead and 4 others wounded when the vehicle was attacked in the city of Nawar. 27 February, 5th deserters were killed in the Daraa province by the Assad army according to Syrian government media. On the 28th of February, South OHR reported that 5 soldiers were killed in Dale, in Daraa. On the 3rd of March, 6 soldiers were killed and 9 wounded when armored personnel carriers and military buses were attacked near Daraa. On the 6th of March, the military launched an assault on the town of Hirak in Daraa. SOHR reported that large military forces, including tanks and armored troop carriers, launched an assault on Hirak. Explosions and heavy machine gun fire were heard, the Britain-based monitoring group said, citing residents. The local coordination committees, a network of activists on the ground, denounced the heavy shelling of Hirak, which it said targeted houses and mosques, as well as a search operation that saw troops burn homes, loot and carry out arrests. FSA members in the city fought back, leaving 5 soldiers dead. SOHR reported that a young girl was shot dead by a government sniper in the town. On the 10th of March, it was reported that 5 soldiers died when an armored personnel carrier was attacked in Daraa province. On the 13th of March, FSA fighters killed 12 members of Assad's forces in an attack in Daraa, according to the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights. On the 14th of March, the Syrian Army stormed Daraa with 150 armored vehicles, despite a much weaker FSA presence in the city than in Homs or in Idlib. Activists said 7 army defectors and 13 civilians were killed in the operation by the army. On the 21st of March, Sana reported a number of security officials and civilians were killed in a car bombing in Daraa. The blast caused big damages in some surrounding buildings, and left behind a 2-meter crater, the agency said in English, but without giving any specific casualty toll, whilst the SOHR organization reported 2 soldiers had been killed in Daraa on the 20th of March. On the 22nd of March, 1 soldier was killed in the town of Sadr, and 2 others were killed elsewhere in Daraa province. On the 24th of March, 1 soldier was killed in Daraa. On the 4th of April 2012, the FSA in Daraa province killed 2 soldiers. 5 soldiers were killed on the 5th of April in 2 different attacks. On the 15th of April, Sana government-controlled state media reported the deaths of 2 soldiers on a highway, and that the bodies of 2 army officers were found in the Daraa countryside. On the 17th of April 2012, despite an agreed ceasefire, government forces shelled Bursa al-Hara, a town controlled by the opposition, killing 2 civilians. On the 18th of April 2012, Sana reported a policeman was shot dead in Daraa. On the 20th of April, Sana reported the deaths of 10 security force personnel due to a roadside bomb in southern Syria. Another 5 soldiers were killed in a bomb attack in the village of Karak. State media claimed the bomb in the first explosion was over 100 kilograms, and that a bus was blown up near the village of Hait in Daraa province. Also, state media reported that a police station was attacked by a group of men with machine guns, causing 1 security force member's death and that a chief warrant officer was killed in Daraa. On the 23rd of April, Sana reported that a lieutenant colonel was killed in an ambush in the Daraa countryside. On the 27th of April 2012, the state-run news, Sana, reported that 21 soldiers and security forces had died in the space of 2 days in Daraa city. Firstly, it was alleged that armed men had shot dead 15 members of the security forces on 35 April and then shot 6 more on the 27th of April. On the 2nd of May, an explosion on a highway killed a soldier and a policeman was killed by gunfire in central Daraa, according to Sana government-controlled media. Meanwhile, 2 chief warrant officers were also reported to have been killed. On the 15th of May, South OHR reported heavy clash between the military and defectors in Daraa, which saw 5 soldiers and 2 civilians dead by the end of the day. On the 16th of May, state media reported that 2 security force members were killed by 2 explosions and gunfire. One of them was an officer. On the 2nd of June it was reported that 6 soldiers were killed in Daraa. On the 9th of June, the Syrian Army was reported to kill at least 17 civilians, including women and children, during fighting in Daraa, activists said. On the 10th of June it was reported that opposition fighters were gaining ground in Daraa. On the 16th of June, state media said that 3 opposition fighters were killed in Daraa countryside when they tried to attack a checkpoint, while the following day 2 others were killed by the Syrian Army, which allegedly seized 3 machine guns and 8 explosives devices. On the 28th of June, 17 rebels were killed and 13 others arrested, Sana reported. On the 3rd of August, 16 rebels were killed by helicopter fire near Daraa. On the 16th of September 2011, Syrian state-run media reported that 1 police officer was killed and 4 wounded when they were shot at in Busria al-Hara, a village in Daraa Governorate. On September 29, local coordinating committees claimed that FSA fighters carried out a successful attack on a government air defense site in the town of Al-Gharia. On the 13th of October 2011, the British-based Syrian Observatory for Human Rights said 6 soldiers and 2 army deserters were killed in fighting in the southern town of Hara, as well as 1 civilian. On the 10th of November, twin suicide car bomb attacks struck the Syrian Army Officers Club in Daraa, killing at least 20 soldiers. Sana also reported the attack but did not mention casualties. On the 17th of December, clashes are ongoing between regime and rebel fighters in the Tariq al-Sad neighborhood of Daraa. The area is also under bombardment. Early reports of 1 regular soldier dead. Clashes also took place in the refugee camp. 1 man was killed by a sniper in Ariha. clashes took place when rebels attacked an army brigade in the Al-Lijah area. Early reports that 2 defected officers were killed. On the 18th of December, rebel forces stormed the base of the Syrian Army's 34th Brigade near Daraa, capturing several tanks. On the 30th of December, 6 people were killed by the Air Force bombardment on the town of Kafan Buda. 2 of them were children and 2 women. The number is likely to rise due to the large number of seriously injured. 1 civilian was killed by the bombardment on the town of Tibat al-Imam.